Hello everyone, it's Hunter and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about books that I didn't like, more specifically, books that I did not even finish. I personally cannot, I feel like, I can't even organize my thoughts. I feel like there is not a worse feeling when you're reading a book and it is boring, it's slow, you don't understand it, it's hard to understand, you just can't get into it. Whatever the case may be, whatever reason you decide to put a book down, I think it's okay. I think it is okay to put a book down if you're not into it. I personally have put plenty of books down because I felt like I just couldn't do it, okay? And honestly, I've gotten halfway through books before and just decided I could not finish them. And I think that that's okay because if you are reading a book that you're not into, or again, for whatever reason you put a book down, it's going to slow you down, it's gonna get you in a slump, and it's gonna make you not want to pick any other book up. So I personally think that for your own healthy reading mindset, it's okay to put books down. And I know there are some people who just cannot not finish a book, but I personally can't finish a book if I don't like it. I can't do it. I have a hard time pushing through. Sometimes it's because I just think it's a bad book, poorly written or whatever, but I am gonna go through the list of books that I have. This is not all of them, this is just 5 of them that came to the top of my head that I specifically remember the reason why I didn't finish it. Of course, there are some books I picked up and I just was really bored from the get-go and I didn't even try to write them down because I didn't really try to read it. It was just one that I put down. So anyway, I have a list of 5 books here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. If you have read these books and liked them, then more power to you because we all have different tastes in books. But these are just my personal opinions. So let's go ahead and get started. The first book, which I hate that I couldn't read it, but is One by One by Ruth Ware. I'm thinking maybe at some point I'll try to listen to the audiobook. I have read other books by Ruth Ware before and I loved them, but I just had the hardest time getting into this book. I tried to read it even from the beginning like 3 or 4 times before I finally just gave up and I was like, I can't read this, I'm not going to read it. I think the cover is great, but something that I struggle with is having a book with a large cast of characters and the perspectives throughout the book are a lot of different characters. I just have a hard time keeping up. There's just like a lot going on. I get the characters confused for other characters and I just felt like I had a really hard time even just like visualizing stuff. I think I maybe got the furthest I got into reading it was chapter 5, which is not that far, but I couldn't get into it. I felt like I was bored the whole time. I don't know, it was just like really, I don't know. There was just something about it that I couldn't get into it and I hated that I couldn't get into it because like I said, I've read other books by that author and I really enjoyed them. For example, I have one on my shelf right here, In a Dark, Dark Wood. I loved this book. I thought it was so good, but I couldn't get into the other one. So into One by One. So I just decided to put it down and call it a day. So the next book is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I don't know why, this is kind of just like One by One. I just couldn't find myself getting into it. I was reading it so slowly and like even in the first chapter I was like, I'm bored. I was so bored, and if you can't catch me in the first chapter, there's a problem. At least in One by One I was kind of intrigued by the first chapter, but in The Final Girl Support Group I couldn't even make it past, like I couldn't even get to the second chapter because I was so bored of the first chapter, and I feel like that's not a good sign. Also, for some reason, I think it's a book about like old ladies and I was expecting it to be not about old ladies. Like I don't know what I was expecting it to be, but it wasn't what it was. I don't know. I had different expectations for it and maybe my expectations killed the dream of that book for me, but I had a hard time with it and I just decided to return it to the library. The first one by One, I got from a little free library and I just gave it to someone else. So there's that. The next 3 are books that I read a good amount of, like the last 3 on this list. I read a good amount of, but just decided either halfway through or 30% through that I just could not read it anymore. So the next one is Troublemaker by Elle Kennedy. I have read another book by Elle Kennedy and I really enjoyed it. It was Good Girl Complex, and I personally am not a fan of smutty books. I think that, let's back up. I think the most intense of like the spiciness that I can read is probably Tessa Bailey, and even then like the cartoon cover books, not the ones with people on them. I just find the ones with people on them tend to be so much spicier than I can really handle, and that's kind of what I was getting from this one. I was like, wow, this is a cute book, and then it got to the spice and it was almost like that's all it was. It was like there was no plot, it was just spice, and I can't handle that. It was also very descriptive, and like personally I'm not a fan of that. I know plenty of people are super into spicy and smutty books, but like for me, I just felt like it was way too much. I got halfway through the book and I was like, I can't do this anymore. anymore. I don't even need to know what happens to these characters because they literally are, it's just so spicy scene after spicy scene after spicy scene. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was too much for me. I felt like my brain was dirty after reading it. I just felt like I just felt dirty after reading it. I was like, I feel like I need to read my Bible right now because I feel very disgusting after I read 50% of it, and I tried to push through, but again, there was just no plot. It was just so much spice, so much, not any plot, and I was having a hard time, okay? I couldn't do it. I had to put it down. There's some people who can handle it, but not me. Absolutely not. It was too much for me, and as much as I hate to say it, like I said, I read another book by her, Good Girl Complex, and I really enjoyed it, but it was mostly plot with a little bit of spice rather than mostly spice with like hardly a plot. And I can't do it. Nope, not into it. So that's why I had to put that one down. The next one is Just Like Magic by Sarah Hochul, and I felt so bad because I had such high hopes for this one. It is a book about Christmas. I don't even know how to describe what this book is about. I really read a lot of it. It's about a girl who she is lying to her family. She was an influencer who had tons of money, and then she basically blew all of her money and lost all of her popularity, and now she's like squatting in this house in the hometown of her grandparents, but her grandparents don't know she's there, but she's squatting there so that she can show up for Christmas. Anyway, her whole family's like trying to one-up each other with their success and their money and their material belongings, and this guy shows up and he's like magic, and he's basically granting her wishes, and I thought that was like a really cool concept, but I felt like I was just watching the same scene play out over and over and over again. It just felt very redundant, and I hope that none of these authors ever find this video because I would feel so bad, but it felt so redundant to me, and like I said, I feel so bad because I had such high hopes for this one, and it was an advanced reader's copy from NetGalley. I think it might be out now. Let me look it up. What was your pub date? It came out October 4th, so it didn't come out that long ago, but whenever I tried to read it, again, it felt so redundant. I was like, can we just move on? Can something else happen? I think I got 30% of the way through, and I was like, you know what? I'm just so bored that I can't finish. I felt really bad about that one. I really did. Okay, the last book is one that again I feel bad about. It's called Leave This World Behind by Rumaan Alam. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm so sorry if that's incorrect, but I don't even remember what this book was about, but I just remember the language in this book was so much more elevated than anything that I read, and I'm used to flying through books. Like, I'm not gonna say I'm the fastest reader in the world because I know there are some people who can, you know, read a book pretty quickly, but my goal whenever I open a book on my Kindle is to see if I can beat the time that it says in the corner. If it says like 5 hours and 36 minutes left to read the book, I'm gonna try to finish it 30 minutes earlier because I am desperate to beat that. I want to see what it says in the very beginning and beat that. Nothing makes me happier than watching the numbers fall rapidly whenever it is learning my reading speed from 5 hours to 4 hours. I really love to read fast. In this one, I felt like the language was so elevated. It was a lot more sophisticated in language, and not that I read books that are on like a really low level because I don't think that I have a low level of comprehension, but I just couldn't read it quickly, and that makes it really difficult for me to get into a book. I don't know, what's the grade level reading like of, let's see. This book I'm reading right now, I'm reading it slower than I would like to because this book actually comes out on, the day that I'm filming this is publication day for this book. But this is a historical fiction book, so there's lots of names and places that I do not understand because they are in Polish or German or Slovak, and I am having a hard time getting through those words because I just don't know how to pronounce them, and it bothers me when I can't pronounce them. Like, I want to say it correctly. So, like, even in my mind, I don't like skipping over it and going like blah, 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 blah in my head because I know some people do that, and I've done that in the past, but I don't like to do that, especially with a historical fiction book because these are real places and real people, and so that has slowed me down a bit. But this book was fully fictional. The names were easy to read. It was just the language that was used was so much more difficult for some reason, and I was like, am I stupid? Do I read dumb books? Do I read books for dumb people? Like, I literally felt so stupid reading that book, and I think I got maybe like 25% of the way because I was invested in the story. I wanted to know what was going on, but there were so many like asides, and I just felt like you were going off of the plot too much, and I couldn't even tell what was going on half the time. But I just didn't understand the book, okay? For some reason, my reading comprehension just went out the window. I I was like just reading words on a page and had no idea what was going on, which is the worst feeling when you're reading a book, and that kind of means I'm gonna put it down. So anyway, now that I have just told you all about these books that were too smutty, were too hard to read, were boring, were redundant, those are the 5 books that have stuck out in my mind this year as books that I couldn't finish. And again, I feel bad that I couldn't finish them because lots of them have raving reviews, but I just couldn't do it, and I'm sorry if you like them. If you do, I'm happy for you, okay? I want you to like these books. I wanted to like these books, but they just weren't for me. They may be for you. But anyway, that is all I have for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel down below. I post book videos every single Friday. Next Friday's not gonna be, I'm not posting this on a Friday, am I? It's because I have an event to go to the day that this video goes live, and that's why we're swapping the days. I post a video once a week, usually on Fridays. So if you guys like book videos, then be sure to subscribe so you can come back and see more. I talk about my favorite books and books I've read, and I rate them, I compile lists, I talk about Kindle, I talk about the library, I talk about how to get books for free, things like that. I think that I have lots of useful information when it comes to books because I read a lot of them. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!